I still remember the way he looked at me that day, a half smile, half smirk that cut deeper than any insult. "Grow up, Liam," he said, tossing my graduation cap onto the couch. "You've always been too soft for the real world." That was my brother, Ethan. Older by 3 years. Smarter, louder, sharper, or at least, that's what everyone said. He was the golden child, business major, internships, charm that could melt stone. And me. I was the creative one. The one who spent nights designing apps, freelancing logos, chasing ideas that never quite landed. Dad used to joke that Ethan would run the world and I'd make it look pretty. Everyone laughed, except me. When college ended, everything shifted. Ethan got a job right away, at some mid-tier firm in New York. I stayed home for a while, trying to get my startup idea off the ground, a small business tool for freelancers. Ethan hated that. He said I was wasting time, mooching off Dad, chasing a fantasy. Then one night, over dinner, he said it, the line that burned into my memory forever. "You're not cut out for this. Some people lead, others just tag along." Mom gasped, Dad said nothing, and I just sat there, silent, humiliated, trying not to show how much it stung. That was the night he cut me off. He blocked me on everything, texts, socials, and said he was done babysitting. He told mutual friends I was jealous, lazy, unfocused. I didn't argue. I just left. For the next few months, I lived small. Tiny apartment. Instant noodles. No support, no calls from home. But every time I thought about quitting, I heard his voice. "You're not cut out for this." So I worked. Harder than I ever thought possible. I coded until my eyes burned, emailed investors who never replied, pitched in cafes until they kicked me out at closing. Then one night, after nearly a year of silence, I got an email. Subject line, "Funding round accepted." It was from a small angel investor in Seattle who loved my prototype. They offered $25,000 to build a beta. It wasn't much, but it was oxygen. I remember sitting on the floor of that apartment, laptop glowing in the dark, whispering to myself, "This is it. Don't waste it." The next 2 years were a blur. Early mornings, late nights, caffeine, and constant fear. But somehow, piece by piece, it worked. My app, WorkNest, started spreading among small business owners. Freelancers shared it online, saying it saved them hours every week. Then a tech blog picked it up. Then another. By the end of year 3, we had 40,000 users. I hired 2 friends from college. And when the first investor asked if we'd ever consider a CEO position, I smiled. Because for the first time, I finally believed I could be one. But even as success crept in, I couldn't shake the echo of that dinner table. "You're not cut out for this." It became my fuel and my curse. A few months later, I saw him again. "Ethan." It was Christmas. Mom begged us both to come home, saying she missed her boys together. I didn't want to go, but guilt won. When I walked in, he was already there, same confident smirk, tailored suit, new watch. We made small talk. He bragged about his company. Then he looked at me and asked, "So, you still doing that app thing?" I nodded. He laughed. "That's cute." Mom tried to change the subject, but the air was already thick with tension. And then, as if fate wanted to twist the knife, Dad asked, "So, Liam, how's your business doing?" I told them the truth. We'd just hit 6 figures in monthly revenue. I was negotiating a Series A round. And I was about to hire 10 new employees. Ethan froze. Mom gasped. Dad sat back, eyebrows raised. I didn't say more. I didn't need to. His silence said everything. That night, as I left the house, he followed me outside. He didn't say congrats. He didn't apologize. He just muttered, "Guess you got lucky," and walked away. But that was only the beginning. 2 years later, WorkNest became a full corporation. We raised millions. I became CEO at 29. I hired a full team, developers, designers, sales, support. We moved into a glass office overlooking downtown Austin. I built everything from scratch, without him, without my family's help, without their belief. And I thought I was done with the past, until one Monday morning, my assistant walked in holding a resume. "Hey, Liam," she said, smiling, "we got a new applicant for the marketing manager position. Says he has family connections to you." I glanced at the paper, and my heart stopped. Ethan Carter. For a few seconds, I just stared at the name. It didn't make sense. My brother, the same one who told me I'd fail, was now applying for a job at my company. I flipped through his resume. Impressive background. But the cover letter hit harder than anything I'd ever read. "I've always admired your company's growth, and would be honored to contribute to its success." No mention of our history. No mention of who I was to him. Just another applicant, pretending the past didn't exist. My assistant asked, "Should I schedule an interview?" I paused. Smiled. And said, "Yeah. Let's do it." But deep down, I knew, this wasn't just business anymore. This was karma walking through my front door. The morning of the interview felt surreal. My hands were steady, but my heartbeat wasn't. Every sound, the hum of the AC, the faint buzz of keyboards outside, felt amplified. I wasn't nervous about the meeting. I'd handled investors, press, even government contracts. But this was different. At 10 a.m. sharp, my assistant buzzed in. "Your 10 a.m. is here." "Send him in," I said, keeping my voice calm. The door opened, and there he was. Ethan Carter. My brother. Older, sharper lines around his mouth now, but still carrying that air of superiority, except it was cracked this time. He smiled, that same smile from years ago, only it didn't reach his eyes. "Liam." "Long time, huh?" I motioned for him to sit. "It has been." He adjusted his tie, glanced around the office, the glass walls, the minimalist design, the view of downtown. "Nice place," he said, a little too softly. "Didn't think your app thing would get this far." There it was, the same mix of envy and disbelief. But this time, I wasn't that humiliated kid at the dinner table. I leaned back in my chair, met his gaze, and said, "Neither did you." He flinched, barely noticeable, but I saw it. For a moment, silence filled the room. Only the distant hum of traffic below. Then he launched into his pitch. Polished, practiced, almost mechanical. Years of corporate training had made him sound smooth, but not real. He talked about his experience, his marketing background, his passion for innovation. I listened, nodding at the right times, but inside I was replaying every insult, every time he told me I'd fail. When he finished, I asked, "Why here? Why now?" He hesitated. That was new. Ethan never hesitated. Finally, he said, "My company downsized. I'm between roles." I thought maybe, he stopped himself, cleared his throat. I thought it might be time for something new. Something new. Like rewriting history. I wanted to make him squirm. To say, "You mean you need me now?" But I didn't. Instead, I said, "Well, we'll review your application and get back to you." He nodded, stood up, and extended his hand. I shook it. Firm. Professional. And then he left, just like that. But as soon as the door closed, I exhaled. For the first time in years, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Not exactly. What I felt was power. And that scared me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing his face, confident, but tired. Desperate, but pretending not to be. A part of me wanted to reject him instantly. Another part, the one Mom would have been proud of, whispered, give him a chance. The next morning, I called her. She answered with that same warm tone, like she'd been waiting for me to reach out. Liam. Oh, it's so good to hear your voice. We talked for a bit, catching up. Then I asked casually, did you know Ethan applied here? There was a long pause. Then she sighed. I was afraid you'd find out like that. Like what? Things haven't been easy for him. He made some bad investments. Lost his job. His wife left last year. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. It was strange, hearing it all laid bare like that. The man who once called me weak was now the one losing everything. Mom's voice softened. Liam, I'm not asking for anything. Just, be kind. Please. I said I'd think about it. But I already knew what I was going to do. The next week, we called him in for a second interview, this time, with the executive team. He looked nervous, trying hard to hide it. The suit was the same. The arrogance was gone. He answered questions, gave examples, even cracked a few jokes. And for a moment, I almost forgot who he used to be. Almost. After he left, my COO asked, so, what's the story there? You two have the same last name. I smiled faintly. Yeah. His family. She nodded slowly. You sure you want to hire him? You looked tense. I hesitated, then said, yeah. Let's give him a chance. When Ethan got the call, he was shocked. He thanked me 3 times on the phone, his voice cracking slightly near the end. It felt surreal, the same man who once belittled me now thanking me for an opportunity. His first day at Worknest was quiet. He kept to himself, respectful, overly polite. He'd knock before entering my office. He'd call me sir in meetings, which felt strange and unnecessary. But over the next few weeks, I noticed something. He was good. Like, really good. Creative, efficient, persuasive with clients. People liked him. And slowly, I began to forget the bitterness. Until one Friday afternoon, my HR director knocked on my door with a file. You might want to see this, she said. It was an expense report. Ethan's name on it. Travel reimbursements for meetings that never happened. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But the receipts were fake, fabricated. I felt my stomach drop. It couldn't be happening again. I called him in that evening. He looked surprised when he saw the file on my desk. What's this? He asked. I handed it to him. Care to explain? He glanced through it, eyes flicking nervously between the pages. Then, finally, he said, it's not what it looks like. I waited. I needed the money, he said quietly. I was going to pay it back next month. Things have been tight. Ethan, I said, keeping my tone even, you falsified records. He didn't deny it. He just sat there, eyes glassy, voice small. I messed up. Again. That's when I saw him differently. Not as the arrogant brother who hurt me, but as a broken man who couldn't stop sabotaging himself. He whispered, please don't fire me, Liam. I can fix this. I swear. And for a long moment, I didn't answer. I just stared at the man who once made me feel small, now small himself. Then I said softly, "You know what hurts most, Ethan? It's that even when I tried to forgive you, you still couldn't be honest with me." His lips trembled. I know. I could have destroyed him right there, reported him, ruined his career, humiliated him publicly. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "Go home. I'll decide by Monday." As he left my office, I noticed his hands shaking. And for the first time, I realized this story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about choice. Because sometimes, the hardest thing isn't punishing someone. It's forgiving them when they least deserve it. But I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. Because what happened next changed everything. That weekend was heavy. I didn't go out, didn't answer texts. I just sat in my apartment, staring at the city lights outside, wondering how everything had come full circle. My brother, the same man who'd once cut me off, was now the one hanging by a thread because of me. And the truth was, I didn't know what I wanted to do. If I fired him, it would be justified. If I forgave him, it would be merciful. But deep down, I wanted something else. Not revenge. Not pity. Just understanding. Monday came too fast. Ethan walked into my office early, before anyone else had arrived. He looked exhausted, eyes red, clothes wrinkled, the weight of failure written all over him. "I wanted to talk before you made your decision," he said quietly. I gestured for him to sit. He didn't. He just stood there, shifting on his feet. "I know I messed up," he said. "I don't have any excuses left. I wanted to tell you why." He took a deep breath. "When I lost my job last year, I thought it was temporary. But then the debts piled up. My wife left. I sold the house. And when I saw your company online, when I saw you doing everything I said you couldn't," his voice cracked. "I felt small. I wanted to prove I could still be something. That I wasn't the failure everyone said I was." I didn't say anything. He wiped at his eyes, embarrassed. "I know you probably think this is karma," he whispered. "And maybe it is. But I just want you to know. I'm proud of you. I really am." That was the first time I'd ever heard those words from him. And they hit harder than all the years of silence combined. After he left, I just sat there for a long time. Thinking. Remembering. Feeling the sting of old wounds softening, little by little. When HR came in later asking if I wanted to proceed with termination, I said, "No. Not yet. Let me handle this." That afternoon, I called Ethan back into the office. He looked like he was bracing for impact. I slid a document across the table. "This is your resignation," I said. "Voluntary. Effective immediately." He swallowed hard. "So that's it?" "Not exactly." I leaned forward. "I'm giving you a second chance, but not here. I've got a friend who runs a small consultancy in Dallas. They are looking for someone with your background. I already sent them your resume." He blinked, confused. You did that for me?" I nodded. "You don't get to steal from me and stay. But you also don't get to ruin your life over one mistake." He just sat there, silent, stunned. Then finally, he whispered, "Why?" I smiled faintly. Because I remember what it felt like when someone decided I wasn't worth another chance. A week later, he left the company quietly. No drama. No headlines. Just a simple goodbye email that ended with, "Thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't deserve it." For the first time in years, I didn't feel bitterness. Just peace. But the story didn't end there. 6 months later, I was at a tech conference in San Francisco, standing backstage before a keynote speech. As I reviewed my notes, my phone buzzed, an email from Ethan. Subject line, "You were right." I opened it. He'd been working with the Dallas firm for a few months, helping small businesses rebuild after COVID. He said it wasn't glamorous, but it made him feel useful again. Then, at the end, one line stood out. "I don't know if I'll ever be the brother you deserved, but I'm trying to be the man you believed I could be." I stared at that line for a long time. And for the first time, I didn't see my brother as the person who broke me. I saw him as someone who finally understood what it meant to rebuild from nothing. When I stepped onto the stage minutes later, I started my talk with something I hadn't planned. "I used to think success was about proving people wrong," I said, looking out at the crowd. "But it's not. It's about proving to yourself that you can rise without turning bitter. That you can win without needing anyone to lose." The room went quiet. And in that silence, I realized, I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. A year later, on a quiet Sunday morning, I got a call from Mom. She said Ethan was visiting. She asked if I wanted to come by. I hesitated, but something in her voice, that hope, that longing, made me say yes. When I walked into the house, Ethan was there, sitting at the old kitchen table. The same one where he'd once told me I'd never make it. Only now, he stood up when he saw me, smiled, and said, "Hey, kid. You made it." I laughed. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't awkward. It just felt right. We talked for hours about life, work, regrets. At one point, he said, "I used to think being the oldest meant being in charge. But you taught me something. Real strength isn't about control. It's about humility." And I realized something then. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It just stops it from controlling you. Now, years later, when I walk into my office, I sometimes glance at that old resume, the one with his name on it. I keep it in a drawer, folded, worn from time. Not as a reminder of revenge, but of how far I've come, and how much I've let go. Because in the end, success didn't feel like victory over him. It felt like peace within myself. If you've ever been doubted, betrayed, or made to feel small, remember this: you don't need revenge to win. You just need to keep going until your growth speaks louder than their disbelief. Sometimes karma isn't loud. Sometimes, it just walks into your office wearing a suit, asking for a job, and you realize you don't need to hurt them to know you've already won. I don't hate him anymore. I tell people when they ask about my brother. But I'll never forget what he taught me, that even pain can become the foundation of something beautiful. And maybe that's what family is in the end. Not perfect. Not fair. Just human, breaking, healing, and starting again. If this story hit you hard, tell me in the comments what you would have done. Share this video with someone who's ever had to earn respect the hard way. And subscribe for more stories that make you feel something real.